When Max Verstappen crossed the line in the 2016 Spanish Grand Prix, he took out what he hoped would be only a temporary membership of one of the smallest clubs in Formula 1, as he joined the 22 drivers who have just a solitary Grand Prix victory to their name. In this video, we celebrate Formula 1's one-win wonders. We start with Heikki Kovalainen, who won the Hungarian Grand Prix in 2008. He started 94 Grand Prix and scored 3 other podiums. When Heikki Kovalainen switched from Renault to McLaren in 2008, he knew he'd have Lewis Hamilton as his teammate. What he didn't know was how completely Hamilton would dominate him. In Hungary, Heikki qualified third, and with Hamilton delayed by a puncture, looked set to follow Felipe Massa home. When Massa's engine expired with 3 laps to go, Kovalainen was there to step in. He became the 100th different driver to win a Grand Prix, but never came close again in his remaining season and a half at McLaren. A stint with Caterham would provide no further opportunities. Robert Kubica won the 2008 Canadian Grand Prix. He started 76 races and would score 11 other podiums. Before his terrible rallying accident in early 2011, Kubica was one of the hottest prospects in Formula 1 and would almost certainly have added to his victory tally. A Formula 1 return now looks impossible for the Pole, in which case the chaotic 2008 Canadian Grand Prix will remain his only Formula 1 win. Had Lewis Hamilton hit the back of Kubica's BMW Sauber and not Kimi Raikkonen's Ferrari as the pair waited to exit the pits, Kubica wouldn't even be on this list in the first place. But with Hamilton and Raikkonen both out, Kubica hunted down teammate Nick Heidfeld for a superb win and a surprising BMW 1-2. Jean Alesi won the 1995 Canadian Grand Prix. He started 201 races and would take 31 other podiums. For years, Jean Alesi seemed destined to take the mantle of best driver never to win a Grand Prix from Chris Amon, especially when he chose Ferrari over Williams in 1991. But then came Montreal in 1995. He inherited the lead from Michael Schumacher when the German had a lengthy pit stop and held on to win, although he ran out of fuel before he could make it back to the pits. Jarno Trulli won the 2004 Monaco Grand Prix. He started 251 Grand Prix and would score 10 other podiums. Trulli's lengthy career should have garnered the Italian more than one win. He was the better of the 2 Renault drivers, up against Fernando Alonso in early 2004. He took his first ever pole at Monaco and drove a faultless race, leading 72 of the 77 laps. But his form deteriorated and he was dropped before the end of the year after a fallout with team boss Flavio Briatore. Gunnar Nilsson won the 1977 Belgian Grand Prix. He started 31 races and scored 3 other podiums. At Zolder in 1977, Nilsson kept his cool in changeable weather when a sticking wheel nut dropped him back to 8th in his Lotus 78. He charged back to 2nd behind Niki Lauda's Ferrari and with 20 laps to go took the lead to take victory. The talented Swede died from testicular cancer the following year, so we'll never know just how many more races he could have won. Francois Sever won the 1971 US Grand Prix. He started 46 Grand Prix and scored 12 other podiums. Sever won the 1971 US Grand Prix at Watkins Glen, having taken the lead from Tyrrell teammate Jackie Stewart. Despite skidding on oil, he finished 40 seconds clear of Joe Siffert. Second behind Stewart 6 times in 1973, he was being groomed to take over his mantle after the Scot retired, but it never happened. In 1973, Sever was killed at Watkins Glen, the scene of his greatest triumph. Olivier Panis won the 1996 Monaco Grand Prix. He started 157 races and scored 4 other podiums. The last thing anybody would have expected Panis to do from 14th on the grid at Monaco in 1996 was to win. He topped the pre-race warm-up, then drove superbly, moving up to 2nd behind Jean Alesi despite spinning on oil from Damon Hill's expired engine. Alesi was out with 15 laps to go and Panis became the first Frenchman to win in a French car at Monaco since 1930. Vittorio Brambilla won the 1975 Austrian Grand Prix. He started 74 races and scored no other podiums. Brambilla's win at the rain-shortened Austrian Grand Prix was just incredible, as was its aftermath. He blasted past Fittipaldi, Lauda and Di Palla before taking the lead from Hunt on lap 19. The race was stopped after 29 laps, but when Brambilla was shown the checkered flag, he got so excited that he drove into the barriers. He only just managed to coax a victory lap out of his damaged March. Jochen Mass won the 1975 Spanish Grand Prix. He started 104 races and scored 7 other podiums. Sadly for Mass, though, he'll never be able to look back on his sole Grand Prix win with much joy. It was the fourth and ultimately final race to be held on the Montjuic Park street circuit in Barcelona, and Rolf Stommelen was leading on lap 26 when the rear wing on his Hill GH1 broke. This sent him into the Armco and then back across the track, where he hit the barriers on the other side before flying over them. 4 bystanders were killed. Stommelen was seriously injured, and it took 4 laps for the race to be stopped, by which time Mas was the new leader. Jean-Pierre Beltoise won the 1972 Monaco Grand Prix. He started 84 races and scored 7 other podiums. It wasn't until the Frenchman switched teams from Matra to BRM in 1972 that he finally achieved the success he craved. The torrential rain at Monaco suited him down to the ground, and after a great start, he swiftly moved from 4th place to 1st. Leading in those conditions without the spray coming off the other cars would have been a huge benefit, but nevertheless, Beltoise drove the race of his life to beat another rain expert, Jackie Ickx, by over half a minute. It would be BRM's last victory in Formula 1. Peter Gethin won the 1971 Italian Grand Prix. He started 30 races and scored no other podiums. If you're only going to win one Grand Prix, you could do worse than this belter. In the last of Monza's slipstreaming classics, 5 drivers, all seeking their first victory, were in a position to win on the final lap. Francois Sever led Ronnie Peterson into Lesmo when Gethin's BRM scrabbled past. Sever was forced wide at the corner, and as all 5 cars approached the line, Gethin pipped Peterson by 0.1 seconds. Sever was 0.08 seconds back, and the top 5 were covered by half a second. Ludovico Scarfiotti won the Italian Grand Prix in 1966. He started 10 races and scored no other podiums. Being the nephew of Fiat boss Gianni Agnelli, it was rather apt that Scarfiotti's sole win would come at Monza in a Ferrari. He'd made his debut with the team in 1963, but due to injuries suffered at that year's French Grand Prix, had only raced sporadically for Enzo's team until 1966. When John Surtees left Ferrari mid-season, Scarfiotti took his place. He qualified second in Italy, initially dropped down to 7th, then fought his way back to the front to beat teammate Mike Parks. Richie Ginther won the 1965 Mexican Grand Prix. He started 52 races and scored 13 other podiums. The Californian started his F1 career with Ferrari in 1961, and after 2 seasons with them and 3 with BRM, his reputation as an outstanding test driver ensured an invitation to join the fledgling Honda operation for 1965. At the final race in 1965, Ginther qualified 3rd and took an early lead. Then, when world champion Jim Clark retired, he fought off a challenge by fellow American Dan Gurney. The Honda held together, and Ginther brought the team their first ever Formula 1 win. Innes Ireland won the 1961 US Grand Prix. He started 50 races and scored 3 other podiums. Ireland himself admitted that he was fortunate to win the 1961 US Grand Prix at Watkins Glen after early leaders Sterling Moss and Jack Brabham dropped out with mechanical problems. He couldn't take Moss or Brabham, he said later. Their cars were just too fast. He had no fuel pressure in the last 10 laps and a thimbleful of gas at the finish. The win was the first for Team Lotus, but that didn't stop Colin Chapman replacing Ireland with Jim Clark. Giancarlo Baghetti won the French Grand Prix in 1961. He started 21 races and scored no other podiums. Sadly for Baghetti, it was all downhill after he became the only driver to win on his World Championship debut. Baghetti, who hailed from a rich Italian family, had already won for Ferrari in non-championship races when a seat came free at the 1961 French Grand Prix in Reims, following Olivier Gendebier's decision to leave the team. When all the big names hit problems in the race, Baghetti was left to outdrag Dan Gurney's Porsche on the last corner for an unlikely win. Alessandro Nannini won the 1989 Japanese Grand Prix. He started 76 races and scored 8 other podiums. Unfortunately for Nannini, he wasn't the first past the checkered flag for his only Grand Prix win. He was running 3rd when Ayrton Senna had his infamous coming together with McLaren teammate Alain Prost. Senna restarted and passed the Italian, but was later disqualified, so Nannini at least got to stand on top of the podium. He was due a second win in Hungary a year on, but clashed with Senna. 4 races later, his Formula 1 career was ended when his arm was severed in a helicopter accident. Carlos Pache won the 1975 Brazilian Grand Prix. He started 71 races and scored 5 other podiums. The Brazilian Grand Prix is held at the Autodrome José Carlos Pache at Interlagos, a circuit named after the man who claimed his only Formula 1 win in front of his home crowd in 1975. Pache's move to Brabham in mid-1974 provided the boost his career needed. On home turf, after a great start, Pache leapt from 6th to 3rd. Race leader Jean-Pierre Jarier retired with 10 laps to go, and celebrations began as Pache crossed the line 5 seconds clear of countryman Emerson Fittipaldi. Lorenzo Bandini won the 1964 Austrian Grand Prix. He started 42 races and scored 7 other podiums. Italian Bandini won his only Formula 1 race in a Ferrari, although his career with the Scuderia was a checkered one. He signed up in 1962, entered 3 races, and was dropped for 1963. Recruited again at the end of 1963 and retained for 1964, Bandini's win came in the first Austrian Grand Prix to be held at the bumpy Zeldweg circuit. Dan Gurney retired with a suspension failure, handing the lead to Bandini. With only Richie Ginther and Joe Bonnier on the same lap, Bandini was never challenged. Piero Taruffi won the 1952 Swiss Grand Prix. He started 18 races and scored 4 other podiums. With Luigi Villaresi injured and Alberto Ascari away at Indianapolis, Piero Taruffi assumed a more senior position at Ferrari for the first race of 1952. He was running a comfortable second behind teammate Giuseppe Farina when Farina retired with electrical problems, handing Taruffi a straightforward victory by nearly 3 minutes. After 1952, he competed in only 6 more Grand Prix before retiring in 1957. Joe Bonnier won the 1959 Dutch Grand Prix. He started 104 races and scored no other podiums. Bonnier had a long Formula 1 career, making his debut with Maserati in 1956 and last racing in 1971 in a privateer McLaren. But his undoubted career highlight came at Zandvoort in 1959. In the Works BRM, which Cooper driver Sterling Moss had spent the week developing, Bonnier took pole in a tiny field of only 15 cars. For once, luck was on his side, as the famously unreliable BRM P25 held together long enough for the Swede to deliver BRM's first championship victory. Pastor Maldonado won the 2012 Spanish Grand Prix and started 95 races. He scored no other podiums. Pastor Maldonado is widely remembered by Formula 1 fans for bringing a lot of sponsorship money and for crashing. But it's worth remembering that he is still a race winner, and did so in convincing style. He qualified second and was promoted to pole when Lewis Hamilton was excluded from qualifying. In the race, he jumped home hero Fernando Alonso at the pit stops and held off the Ferrari and Kimi Raikkonen's Lotus to win, becoming the first Venezuelan race winner in Formula 1 history. Eventually, though, the sponsorship money ran out, and Maldonado found himself without a drive for 2016. Luigi Musso took a shared victory in the 1956 Argentine Grand Prix. He started 24 races and would score 6 other podiums. Both of the shared drive single race winners did so alongside the great Juan Manuel Fangio. Musso got a chance to drive a Ferrari in 1956 and was the early leader in Argentina before slipping down to 4th, at which point he was ordered to hand his car over to Fangio. The home favourite rejoined in 5th, and when Sterling Moss retired, went on to win by over half a minute. At Monza, later that year, Musso refused to hand his car over to Fangio and was set to win again, only for a broken steering arm to force him to retire from the race. And finally, Luigi Fagioli took a shared victory in the French Grand Prix in 1951. He started 7 races and scored 5 other podiums. Fagioli had been one of Italy's greatest drivers prior to the Second World War and had joined Alfa Romeo for the inaugural Formula 1 season. The Abruzzi robber was brought back for the French Grand Prix in 1951, and while chasing Jose Froilán González's Ferrari, was ordered to hand his Alfa Romeo 159 over to team leader Juan Manuel Fangio at a pit stop. Fangio went on to take what was then classed as a shared victory, while Fagioli actually finished 11th in Fangio's original machine. At 53 years old, Fagioli remains the oldest ever Formula 1 race winner. This video was first suggested by Joshua Shepherd. If you have any ideas for future videos, be sure to leave them in the comments. On the screen are 2 videos that I think you might enjoy. And in the middle there is a nice big subscribe button. You know what to do with that. Thank you very much for watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos from this channel. And I will see you next time.